All right, good morning, conservation partners. Welcome to State Technical Committee meeting for Natural Resources Conservation Service in New Hampshire for February 11th, 2026. I'm Jeremy Fowler. I'll be the moderator for this event. We'll get right into it here, and we'll hand it over to Travis Thompson, our acting state tech, our acting state conservationist. Travis.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Jeremy, thank you for facilitating today's meeting. I know I'm the new face in the room. It's great to see everybody here. Steve was the brave one to come in and brave the snow, and glad everybody else is out there in the virtual world. Hopefully you're staying safe and warm out there. I am Travis Thomason. I know for some of you, I recognize a name, but maybe I haven't had a chance to meet with you. I am the acting, if you will, state conservationist in New Hampshire. Now, my normal day job is the state conservationist in Vermont, so I'm pulling double duty here, covering both states for what I guess I would say is a TBD amount of time to be determined. I am hoping that as the agency continues to move forward and figures out the hiring strategy and all of the great things that USDA is doing, that hopefully at some time in the future, we can get you guys a permanent state conservationist after Becky left. And until then, I'll be here supporting the team, and I'm super grateful to be here. So I am familiar with New England. I've been in Vermont for about 4 years, and super excited to be here in New Hampshire. We have a great NRCS team. We have a great group of partners that I'm really excited to work with. And I'll just share with you what I've shared with the team. My job is to continue to elevate the team's awesomeness, if you will. We really do have a great team, and I'm excited to really jump into USDA's and the chief's priorities. I'll talk about those here shortly, and just continue to make sure that we're maximizing the opportunities for our New Hampshire producers to take advantage of these federal programs. So it's great to be with you. Please feel free to reach out if there's anything you need. I know we have a great team, a leadership team. I do want to recognize that Kim McCracken, who's with us today, this is probably going to be her last state technical committee meeting, unless she volunteers in some other capacity after she retires at the end of February. And just want to tell Kim, you have been a long-standing, awesome member of the team in New Hampshire, and I know they're going to miss you. And yeah, congratulations to you on your retirement. So Kim, we're working on replacing Kim just temporarily. We'll have more information a little bit later. But other than that, the team's intact, and we're continuing to move forward. Just a couple of quick things. So we did miss kind of a state technical committee meeting in October, November because of the shutdown. For that, I apologize. We do know that our headquarters folks worked a ton over the shutdown while we were all shut down, because day one when we got back, there were a lot of changes. There were some organizational changes to the agency that really didn't impact the states very much. But there's, we have some significant folks out there that are continuing to help lead and guide the agency out here in the field. And then there was a big announcement for the agency's regenerative pilot program, the regenerative agriculture pilot program. We'll talk a little bit about that. We have a little bit more information on that, but there's a lot happening. We're moving fast. And there was a national application deadline or conservation application deadline of January 15th. I know we got that out there on the books, but just to kind of keep everybody up to date, kind of what's happening. So the team now is working through all of those applications. We're assessing those applications. We've got a ranking date coming up. And we're working through that normal process that we usually do, but on a shortened time frame, a compressed time frame. And we'll talk a little bit about some of those priorities from the agency here shortly through the program and tech updates and engineering, and excited to hear from all the partners a little bit today. It's my job, just shortly before I get into the chief's priorities, it's my job to really I use the term Vermonticize in Vermont, and that's really this concept of taking these national federal programs and tailoring them to fit the state. And when I got here and I used the term Vermonticize, I can't remember who it was, but someone, Kim, came up with the term granitize. Right, granitize these national conservation programs to really make them fit New Hampshire. That's my number one goal, is to make sure we're working with you, holding the state technical committee, holding the subcommittees, the local work groups is all part of that process. Sanitizing these federal programs to make sure they fit New Hampshire and that we're taking full advantage of all the opportunities that are out there. And I know everybody on the call is really a key part of doing all those things. So in order to granitize that, I want to go through what the chief has just published maybe about 3 or 4 weeks ago, the agency's priorities. And up there on the screen, shortly, you're going to see, I'm not going to read through these in detail, but we will share with you a website that you can go and see these priorities. But this is Chief Betancourt. She is a solid leader. I've really enjoyed working with her. She really has a producer first mentality, and really making sure, as you can see from some of these priorities, that our focus is really helping producers to maximize opportunities to sustain their operation. And really, really appreciate her. And hopefully, I'm hoping we can get her out to New Hampshire and Vermont in the spring sometime, but we're working on some of those things. So the reason I'm sharing these priorities, because over the next little bit, whether it be through the Regional Conservation Partnership Program or it be other conservation funding opportunities, the more our partners know about these priorities, the better they are able to apply for these opportunities and really granitize, if you will, some of these priorities. Again, I won't spend a lot of time on these. Some of these slides are a little bit verbose. We're going to hit priority number 1, which is to preserve and protect agricultural land. We're focused on really slowing the loss of farmland and keeping land in production, keeping farmers farming, if you will. That really means expanding some of our conservation easement programs across the landscape, partnering locally, as you guys know what those local priorities are. And then the concept of promoting regenerative ag practices that improve soil health and profitability. That's really what this first priority is all about. We recognize that roughly across the nation, 5,000 acres of land is converted for development every day. 2,000 of those acres on a daily basis is prime farmland. And so we want to do everything we can to help farmers continue farming and do great things out there. The next priority is to modernize NRCS infrastructure and technology. If you work in our field offices, and I apologize for those of you that have a USDA connection, you'll know that we do not compute at the speed of light, if you will. It is pretty slow. In fact, I think the industry standard for connectivity is about 5 to 8 megabits per second per employee. We're about 1/10 of a megabit per second in some of our USD offices. And so that's a big push for the chief. If we're going to be out there helping producers, we need to be at the edge of technology, really expanding some of those things. So really improving our infrastructure and technology to make sure that we're doing everything we can to help producers do the best they can. Moving to cloud-based tools, getting better broadband in every office, and then the concept of one farmer, one file across FPAC, which we're pretty excited about, is something that will be ahead of us. The third priority is this concept of really making sure that our folks are out in the field, kind of recenter field engagement and technical assistance. Our goal is to spend more time in the field with our producers, not behind a desk. And we're really strengthening our planner certification process. And you're going to hear us talk more about what we're calling IFT, or Integrated Field Tools, which is a mobile-based platform where planners can essentially do most of the work that they need to do planning out in the field. Last week, a group of us were in Indianapolis for a national programs training, and a contractor walked us through kind of a real life scenario. And this scenario was, the producer had a contract, a conservation program contract, and the planner was out there to certify. If you know our business, we go out and certify practices. And right there, we watched through a live demonstration of a planner certifying the practice, taking a picture, getting all the documentation on a mobile phone, and then working it all the way through the system so that the producer could sign a box on the mobile phone, and then they could hit submit for payment, and then it would go through the system for payment. So we're pretty excited about what the future of getting our folks really focusing on technical assistance and back out in the field with producers. Priority number 4, and again, you guys will have access to this in the chat if you want, so you can really dive deep into these. But really, this concept of strengthening partnerships and streamlining our processes, we want to do everything we can to make it easier for you, easier for producers. And we recognize that oftentimes our partners have the ability to do things that sometimes we can't. Also, we recognize that there are less of us in our federal workforce. New Hampshire, we're down 30+ % of where we were a while ago, at least the federal NRCS workforce. I won't even talk about where Patrick and the USDA RD team is, but we recognize that partners will play a great role in conservation planning and delivery. And we definitely want to do more to engage and make sure that you guys have more access to that. The last priority that I'll just talk about briefly is really, we've been really good about talking about measuring success by the number of acres and the dollars that we put out on the ground. That might be meaningful to some, but really what we're interested in is how do we measure the impact to the local communities in terms of environmental outcomes, economic outcomes, social outcomes. How are these really impacting our local communities? So we want to measure success by real improvements, soil health, water management, not just acres enrolled. And we want to recognize producers' conservation leadership, if you will, and help producers gain recognition for the great work that they're doing. Recognize that farmers really are the original conservationists, if you will, and want to recognize them for the great work that they're doing. And so we're excited about these priorities, and just know that when you see future funding opportunities from the NRCS, they likely are going to focus on these priorities. And we're anxious to continue to granitize these programs and maximize opportunities through all of these conservation programs for the state of New Hampshire here. So I look forward to the rest of the meeting. We've got some great updates. Really looking forward to hearing from updates from the rest of the team, and also looking forward to meeting many of you that I haven't had the chance to meet. So thank you, Jeremy. I'll turn it back to you.
All right, thank you, Travis. Up next, we're moving into a section on congressional staff updates. Now, I will preface this with saying that I haven't had any confirmed individuals from Senator Hassan, Rep. Pappas's office, and Rep. Goodlander's office. So if you are out there, please raise your hand, and I'll enable your microphone and your camera. However, I do believe we have Elizabeth McKenna here with us today for Senator Shaheen's office. Elizabeth?
Good morning. How doing? More snow in New Hampshire, so we're doing good. So just wanted to give some folks some updates from Senator Shaheen. We are 97% through appropriations. So all 11 out of 12 appropriation bills have been signed into law, which we are really proud of, that bipartisan work that happened to fund our programs. And agriculture was one of the first. Ag FDA was one of the first that we funded, and that's the appropriations bill that Senator Shaheen is now the ranking member on. So there's some really good wins in there that I think I guess since we haven't had a technical meeting since then, but I'll be sure to pass along the press release that the committee put out about all the different priorities in that. Some of them was like an energy circuit rider pilot program to improve technical assistance for energy projects for communities, rural communities. We also increased funding for SNOTEL research, and Senator Shaheen was actually up in Conway recently, a couple weeks ago, to get an update on the SNOTEL research that NRCS will be partnering with. So we're really excited about that. And they've had a lot to measure this winter, apparently. Some good snowpack. And then we're moving on to FY27. So I did want to let everybody know that we have opened Senator Shaheen's appropriations requests. So if you wanted to submit a CDS, or congressionally directed spending earmark, or if you had interest in a specific program that is working really well for you that you want to let Senator Shaheen know about, this is the time to do it. Please get in touch so we can hear about what's working for you and what we should be prioritizing in her last year doing appropriations. One thing I wanted to note that a lot of people don't take full advantage of is in the congressionally directed spending space. There's an account for APHIS, which is the Animal Plant Health Inspection Service Department of USDA. We can do congressionally directed spending out of there, and people haven't really fully utilized that account. But some of the example projects from previously has been monitoring for like ticks and tick-borne illnesses in animals, invasive plant treatments. So there's a lot of, I think, different things that might be relevant here for New Hampshire. So if you have a project that might fit in that category, please don't hesitate to reach out. We'd love to hear about it and try to help however we can. But that's all I got for now. Thanks for the time.
All right, Elizabeth, thank you so much. Again, Senator Hassan's office, Representative Pappas's office, Representative Goodlander's office. If you are out there, please raise your hand and I'll bring you on the stage. Otherwise, we're going to move on to USDA agency updates, starting with Stacy Lemieux. We are ahead of schedule. Stacy, if you are ready, you can take it away.
I am. That's fine with me. So thanks. Good to see you folks. So yeah, for the U.S. Forest Service, in particular the White Mountain National Forest in my realm, just a few key things to highlight. The Forest Service is going through, as many agencies are, a significant reorganization. In our case, that's actually one that we started prior to this administration, back in FY24, because our funding and our staffing levels didn't align. And so we needed to reduce staffing and get ourselves to a point where we're going to be long-term sustainable with the budgets we anticipate. Currently, the target organization is still being finalized, so we don't know exactly what that's going to look like. We've seen some proposals, have the understanding that they've been revised. So sometime this fiscal year, hopefully sometime in the next few months, we'll be seeing that final organization after it's gone through Congress for that awareness and updates, and then comes out to us. We do expect that most of the focus will be on reducing national and regional level staffing, not impacting the units, so that hopefully the White Mountain, we won't be further reducing staff as a part of that, but it may result in the ability for some folks at those higher levels to shift and to come back to units and to find positions here. So hopefully that'll work out in the long run. But again, we're still waiting to hear what that's going to look like. In the meantime, we will not be hiring from outside, we've been told, for the next 12 to 18 months. So the vacancies that we have are likely to remain vacancies for a while. So we're readjusting how we do work, what we're prioritizing for that work to fit with the staffing we have. We do have some detail and seasonal opportunities that are coming up to try and plug the critical holes that enable us to meet our agency priorities while we wait to have our organization align with the new expectations, whatever that might look like. So not articulating that great, in part just because there's so much we don't know. But I guess the short version is, the staffing we have here on the White, which similar to what you just indicated for NRCS, we are down substantially, is probably going to stay that way, except for some seasonal hiring for a while. And so we've sort of readjusted and are picking and choosing, and then relying a lot, as you said, on partners and on other organizations, and figuring out where can we work together to get things done, which has always been a key part of how things are managed on the White Mountain. It's just becoming even more so now. So looking to agency priorities, our chief has released his FY26 priorities, and number one, safety, as it always has been and always will be in this agency. Wildfire response, not surprising to anybody who watches news for most of the western part of the country, especially, but like last year, even here, that became a priority. And then timber and fuel treatments, what we're referring to as active management, is a key part of our focus. Recreation access and infrastructure. So maintaining, improving access. And as everybody who's here knows, infrastructure is a big challenge for us in the state, particularly in the mountains of the Whites. So that'll be a focus for us. Partnerships and shared stewardship, as I mentioned, how can we work together with states, with other feds, and with other organizations locally? And then similar to NRCS, streamlining, reducing our regulations, shifting our policies, trying to keep focused on these core priorities and make things as easy as possible for us to work while still meeting our requirements under the laws and regulations. So those are all works in progress. That's, I guess, the main stuff I wanted to share related to the agency. And then I'll close out on a personal note, which is that I'm actually retiring as of April 30th. So I'll have just under 35 years in with Fed. So time to move on to something new for me. But this is my last State Technical Advisory Committee meeting. We're hoping we'll have a detailer in behind me starting in May. If so, presumably that person will step in and be engaged the next meeting. If not, it'll be our deputy forest supervisor. So we'll have somebody around for that. If there's questions, happy to answer those, or release the floor to the next person.
If you have questions, you can please put it in the chat. We'll try and revisit those here in a little bit as they come in. Otherwise, anything from within the room?
Congratulations on retirement. That's exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It is. It's kind of scary how quick April 30th is coming.
Yeah.
All right, Stacey, thank you so much. I think no questions in the chat, nothing from within the room. So we will move on to Jeff Holmes, the Executive Director for the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Farm Service Agency. Jeff, are you out there?
I am. Thanks, Jeremy.
Oh, he is here. All right.
Howdy. Yeah, I think we're going to share some slides with you there. It's great to be with all our partners there in the room and online. A whole lot of things going on, at least program-wise for us. Not much staffing like everybody else, but we've got lots of programs happening and still coming. And ongoing. We've been in sort of disaster relief mode for many years now with our not only New Hampshire, but across the country, all kinds of droughts, floods, wildfires, you name it. And we're in the midst of an SDRP, a supplemental disaster relief program that started for 23 and 24. Seems like we're always a year or two in arrears on some of this stuff, but that SDRP is coming out in two phases. Both of them have application deadlines of April 30th. Phase one dealt with indemnified producers that had losses, and phase two is looking at those that hadn't gotten payments but had shallow losses and can make their case for needing assistance for losses in both 23 and 24. The big program that's coming up this month and next is the Farmer Bridge Assistance Program. That was a $12 billion program announced by the president. I think it was back in early January. This to assist producers with higher input costs, market disruptions, and in general unfair trade practices for our customers internationally. The first 11 billion will be sent out the door by the end of this month. That's the plan anyway. It's a streamlined approach where all of our Title I crops have been had their acreage reported, and they developed rates per acre to fit into the program budget. It was announced on New Year's Eve, so everyone knows what their payment's going to be, and it'll be rolled out the last week and this month. And it's designed as such to allow our producers to go to their lenders and tell them what they've got coming up if they need to take out some loans to get crops into the ground. And the last 2 years have been really, really tough on the Midwest row crop folks. Corn and soybean producers losing between $60 and $120 on every acre that they farm. And last year it was the ECAP program for commodities economic assistance. This is similar to that program, but this program adds $1 billion of that $12 billion is set aside for specialty crops, which might be a little more applicable to Northeast and New Hampshire farmers. We will have a certain number of our producers that can benefit from the corn and soybean rates that are part of the FBA program. But in general, we have a smaller acreage, especially crop agriculture is unlike the Midwest. So we're waiting to hear what those details are. We're hearing that first week in March, once these payments are out for the first phase of FBA, they'll let us know what that's going to look like and how we can help out the rest of our folks. Dairy margin coverage has been renewed as part of the OBA, the One Big Beautiful Bill law. That sign up started. It's a calendar year program. Sign up started in January, runs January through December. It's been one of the more successful dairy programs in my memory of federal programs. There were a few in there that weren't so good, but DMC has been very well received by our farms, and they've needed it. Some improvements that were made to DMC this year. There's a tier one premiums were formerly up to 5 million pounds of production annually, which is 225 plus or minus cow herd, and they've added $1 million onto that cap as part of the improvements for this go round with the DMC. allowed farms to update their production. So they pay on what their historic production is. And when DMC came out in 2018, it was set on like 2011 to 2014 production levels. So they've been able to update their herd production about 10 years, so they can get bigger payments when there are payments, but consequently a little higher premiums because of the higher production levels. There is the opportunity to lock in for all 6 years of the program through 2031, 25% reduction in premium, which seems like more than half of the farms signing up this year are taking advantage of. So that's good that they're making that commitment. We've preached to them to do what they can to limit risk on the market side as much as they can. And that's one of the highlights of this program. Emergency Forest Restoration Program, EFRP. We have a sign up coming up in Belknap County. There was a storm hit last June or July in Samerton, I believe. And so they're holding a sign up in the month of March for any others locally there that might have been equally affected. CRP is a huge program nationwide, not so much here. We're always hoping that we can take better advantage of this. But just yesterday, the sign-up dates were announced from our national office for CRP. The continuous sign-up will open tomorrow and go through March 20th, and the general sign-up is opening on March 9th and go through the 17th of April. There is still that 27 million acre cap for CRP, and they're up over 25 million now. So it will be a very competitive sign up this year. They added quite a few acres last year and are a lot closer to cap going into sign up this year. In the midst of all these programs, activities, one of our more important duties is to do the eligibility work and signing up our customers for our NRCS partners. It's one more thing on the list for sure, and with limited staff, it doesn't seem like there's time in the day to do all the things, but we do our utmost to make that happen for all the customers that we share. We do the Apton records and eligibility, and NRCS is our tech support for some of our programs, and namely ECP, EFRP, and CRP. Travis, I guess I owe you a email. I mentioned that we were going to have some ECP signups, and we do have a couple apps from Sullivan County. I guess it was less than I might have warned you that might be coming your way, but we do have some ECP work for Wells and in Sullivan, so we'll be in touch on that for sure. I appreciate that offer of assistance there. Farm loan program, that's underwent a huge update, streamlining effort coming up on 2 years ago now. Our agency is trying to become more user-friendly and ease of applications, just more online ability for self-service, and started with simplifying the application from 29 pages down to 13. There's a loan assistance tool that producers can log on themselves to sort of get them headed in the right direction before they even talk to a staff person. But it's been well received. There are some fast track possibilities there where the whole process is really limited in terms of time needed, with our staff, and so it's been a good change, and we're looking. It was a pilot program looking to make that permanent. On the staffing front, we do have 3, soon to be 4, significant holes in our staff across the state, without any ability to go outside the state to bring in folks. So we may do a little readjusting of in-state staff, but we can't go outside yet. But we'll look forward to that ability as soon as we're allowed. One thing we do have with FSA is both county and state committee folks to help us with our mission. We just brought on, had approved by the Secretary, Secretary Rollins, a 5-member state committee, and we will be welcoming them to our state office for their first meeting next Friday, the 20th. They have many duties overseeing county operations and staffing, and just a lot of programs stuff that they're included in the handbooks as part of our processes, and we're going to rely on them for a lot of their expertise in the ag fields. They're all from agriculture, they're farmers, and looking forward to their input. COC elections are going on. County committees, all of our service centers have a county committee that helps our staff carry out programs. It's election season for COC right now, and actually in Orford today to open ballots, help them open ballots for their election here. All of our service centers have between 3 and 5 member county committees, and once again they help with outreach and telling us what the needs are for the local farming community, and they're all farmers themselves, and a good resource for us. That whole process was put off about 2 months because of the shutdown, where normally would have been having this county meeting back in December, but here we are doing what we got to do when we can. The weather impact, it seemed like we were going back and forth between too much moisture and drought years in the first 4 or 5 years of this decade, and last year we had the benefit of having both a drought and a wet season. And spring was incredibly wet, and we had D3 drought across the state by the summer and fall. So that was a new one on me. And right now we're still drought persisting. Now we've got a D1 in all 10 counties still, and it's just very tough to make that change this time of year with the frozen ground and what have you. But we definitely need a wet spring. I know farmers hate wet springs, but we need some water in the ground eventually. And last year at this time we were almost in the same situation as far as drought goes, and even with the wet spring, that's what led to the quick dry down in the summer, was that holdover drought conditions. As far as disaster declarations, we've got 8 primary counties for drought. 7 were fast track, and we had a county that applied based on crop loss, and we've got a couple other counties that are deferred action based on the excess moisture and cold conditions of last spring. So it's been a busy year for designations as well, and it'd be nice to have an uneventful growing season, but seems almost too much to ask for with the way we've been going here the last few years. That's about all I had. If anyone has any questions for us, I'd be happy to entertain them, and look forward to working with you some more this year, Travis. And I know we got to meet at the state FAC meeting, and I think it was early January, and I'm sure we'll have that opportunity a couple more times this year.
Yeah, Jeff, thanks so much. I just want to say, as you highlighted some of the work that, FSA, we collaborate, FSA is a sister agency. We do a lot together. And I want to say I've worked with a lot of FSA folks over the years. And you, Marilyn, and your FSA team are top notch. I recognize the work we do really relies heavily on you guys to process eligibility, and I know that's never convenient for your team, and I just really want to give you guys a shout out for an awesome job, and really, really so grateful for how easy you guys are to work with. So thanks so much. I do have a quick question for you. On CRP, continuous, and maybe my team can talk about this too, but do you guys expect much of a CRP sign up for continuous at all? Any thoughts there?
We do not. Marilyn's on the call and she's our expert in that area, but we don't currently have any CRP contracts. We've never been able to participate in the grasslands. It's just our rates are not attractive enough for folks. It's just a program we've never really been able to get a foothold in, and doesn't seem to work for our area. But happy to keep looking at it. We keep hoping that there'll be an opportunity there, and we do get to approve some rates locally every year, but they still don't rise to the level where people jump at it.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jeff. Good to see you.
Yep. Thank
Travis, if I can maybe just add to that, coming from Vermont and maybe being familiar with the Vermont CRP, Vermont has a CREP agreement, like an enhancement CRP agreement at the state level, and we don't. So I think a lot of the CRP that we see over in Vermont is relative to that CREP agreement.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Marilyn.
Yeah, thank you.
No questions in the chat, no hands raised. Any in the room? Any other questions in the room? Comments? Okay, that concludes the portion from Farm Service Administration. Next, we'll be moving into U.S. Department of Agriculture's Rural Development Update. And for that, we have State Director for Rural Development in New Hampshire and Vermont, Patrick Sopranowicz. Patrick, are you ready?
Yeah, you're good. I was just kind of flabbergasted. You pronounced the name perfectly. Usually there's at least a hesitation.
I've been practicing in the mirror.
Good job. Yeah, that was flawless, man. No, thank you. And good morning, everybody. Excited to be here. Share a little bit of updates. I will say, Jeff, that was an incredibly in-depth and detailed explanation of all the things. That's going to be tough to follow. So I have some general updates, and I'll kind of start with one because I don't think, and Travis, correct me, we haven't had one of these since the government shut down in New Hampshire, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure I'm not going to repeat myself. So I did end up hiring, as you know, as Jeff touched on, our staffing levels. They are abysmal, honestly. And I'll just be honest. And so I was able to actually hire. Well, we were able to get a deputy state director in. And so that is Peter Silva. He has a lot of experience in the State House. Very familiar with the workings of New Hampshire. So I found him to be a great asset. He came on pretty much as soon as the government shutdown lifted. That was a very big sigh of relief with our staffing levels. And then as of last Friday, I believe, I think it was last Thursday or Friday, for those of you who know Kevin Lambert, he has been an instrumental part of kind of the communication inquiries going out, directing information. He has departed our agency. We were very sad to see him go, but he has a really cool new opportunity over with the state of Vermont. So we're going to be working closely with him, and I'm kind of hoping that, again, I know it really doesn't apply to New Hampshire so much, but, it's nice to have somebody in the state government. So, he's still going to be available to me, but from now on, any inquiries coming in are going to go to Pete himself, which does kind of have an impact on our community facilities department, because initially we were planning on transitioning Peter over to that acting program director. That was going to shift some stuff. We were going to stop having to rely so much on other states. With Kevin leaving, we've had to kind of take a step back. So we're still shuffling people around. I have for those in the call who are interested, I have been told that internal hiring is sort of our first step. Or internal promotions, I should say, is sort of our first step. And I think I'm going to be able to fill that acting program director for community facilities with somebody who, has been with us for some time now. So again, a lot of shuffling going on there. I will share a few things that I can just, and again, there's a lot of question marks, as I'm sure a lot of you know. If I had a crystal ball with me, I'd say, the lights at the end of the tunnel is happily ever afters. Maybe, spring, summer is my kind of expectation now. But I will touch on so REAP grant, that Rural Energy for America program. At last I checked, the program has yet to establish an open window for new applicants. I did take a trip, and this was a little while ago, but we had a trip to DC, as well as my program director Ken, his specialist Tracy. There's been a bottleneck of applications from the Inflation Reduction Act that's supposedly loosening, according to them. We're not quite there to feel comfortable opening the program back up. That being said, once the program is, or once the announcement is made, we do expect those to open up at a pre-IRA level of 25% grant match, 250,000 grant maximum, and that's for energy initiative incentives, and then 500,000 for renewable energy systems, and that's for the grants. The REAP loan guarantee applications, they're accepted year round. What uses and which will be accepted are a little uncertain, but I wouldn't be encouraging too many solar or wind applications is what I would say. And there's kind of a big initiative to, not go with, solar panels, essentially not damaging, but removing farmland. That's kind of the focus. So I wouldn't be too keen on those. Value-added producer grant. Application window open January 15th, and they're accepted until April 15th, and 1 p.m. sharp specifically. So it's popular amongst our agricultural producers, expanding markets and capacity. It's a 1-to-1 match. It is both cash and in-kind contribution. And it's allowed to provide 50%. It now currently features a $50,000 maximum planning grant, 200,000 maximum working capital grant. That is down from 75,000 to 250,000 of its previous iteration. I will add a link into the chat that has some more information about that. I will say, I think this kind of goes. I wouldn't say this is new information, but USDA rural development is really moving away from grants. We're trying to be heavily focused on loan programs. And so, we're seeing those grant numbers shrinking. Last, I would say, which is, more on the more of a positive note and kind of a higher level thing is, and I want to share this. I'm sort of throwing this out to everybody. So, anybody has any thoughts or wants to get involved, please reach out to me. But I've been working on putting together a housing pilot program. We have about 100 foreclosure properties between, we have 200 between Vermont and New Hampshire. We have 100 in New Hampshire that are basically just sitting. The way I understand it, and when I say the way I understand it, just because it's a very confusing and convoluted concept, is we have the central servicing center that started handling all of our foreclosures. So I want to throw this out there. I have this really kind of interesting concept that I want to try where we can do deed in lieu of. And we actually can take some of the housing stock that we have in our portfolio and utilize it for, affordable middle income housing without costing the taxpayers more money. It's a little bit of a flip on its head from a traditional, loan. So if anybody's at all interested in that, I'm really just throwing that out to everybody. So feel free to reach out to me about that. Other than that, and that was more Vermont related. So I will leave it there. And I will say, a lot of uncertainties. We're dealing with 11 people between 2 states right now. Community facilities we got a lot of money from our Congressional. So thank you for those. We're excited about it, but it's definitely a lot of work. So we're having to reach out for assistance from other states. That is working. Business programs, they're in a similar position of staffing levels. Single family housing is really the only one that has a good level, and they just don't have a lot of funding right now. So I will leave it there. If anybody has any questions, I will do my best to answer them. But I'm currently operating without a PIO at the moment. So please be gentle.
Good luck.
Thank you.
All right. Any questions, comments from within the room? All right, nothing. If you're out there in TV land and you'd like to ask a question, please remember to raise your hand. I can enable your microphone and camera at that point. But seeing nothing, Patrick, thank you so much. And Godspeed as you move forward this year. Thank you very much. Up next is scheduled to be the Department of Ag Markets and Food. Commissioner Jasper and Assistant Commissioner Marshall have both confirmed that they were unable to attend. They were supposed to be in about 3 places at once, so adding a fourth was a little bit more than they could make work. So we will not be receiving an update from Department of Ag Markets and Food today. Which preserves a little bit more time. In lieu of that, we'll be moving on to update from the State Conservation Commission. Ian Hanley, Executive Director, is here with us in the room. Ian.
Thanks, Jeremy. Big thing I want to talk about today is the update for local working groups for the year. As Jeremy's pulling up my PowerPoint on that, want to say that we're getting into the busy season for local work groups. The spring season, late winter, early spring is the time that we traditionally do local work groups. And so we're excited to get back into this year. I think we made a lot of progress and came out with a lot of good stuff from last year. And so looking forward to getting back in this year. So awesome. Thank you, Jeremy. And so you can go to the next slide. So as a quick reminder, what are local work groups? So these are public input meetings hosted by county conservation districts and their associated field offices as a way to get public input into resource concerns and provide feedback to NRCS, both their field office and the state office, as well as the district that they're located in. That information is used for a variety of purposes, informing priorities for operations, outreach, and events for the district and NRCS. And so just as a brief reminder on the next slide is what we ended up with last year. So some of our takeaways from last year are top priorities in the state: farm viability, soil health, land conservation, and preservation. And we used the information that we got to come up with a handful of different results and takeaways that we were going to do with this information. And so first and foremost is informing the statewide ranking priorities from that information. And so because we have a consistent procedure that's used with all of the districts, we were able to bring that information together and create statewide results, which I know sounds obvious, but it's the first time that we're able to do that in this capacity. So we were excited about that, using this particular model for meetings. We also talked about creating kind of an annual work calendar for local work group development. And so what that looks like is keeping local work groups as on the STAC meeting agenda and talking about developing that throughout the year. So I mentioned that, we're coming into local work group season. So, now to the May meeting is when we go out and actually do the meetings. And so in May, we'll be presenting on what the results were from those meetings, both locally and statewide. Then from the May to the late summer, like August, usually an August meeting, we'd be working on how we are going to utilize that information and implement the results. And so last summer, Dawn, Kim, Cora, and myself did quite a few meetings to hash out, what we're going to do with this information. And then from the August to usually November meeting, that fall kind of window, is going to be NRCS's time to meet and talk about what changes, other things that NRCS wants to see from the local work group procedure looking into the following year. And then the November to January, February, whenever this meeting is occurring, will be the district's opportunity to take that feedback and kind of turn it into what are we actually doing for work groups this year. This year, that last part was a little bit condensed with the government shutdown. So the group again of Dawn, Kim, and Cora, and myself met multiple times in December with coming out of the shutdown, and then to kind of get an idea for what we wanted to do. The district representatives and staff have been working in January to get that district input into the procedure. And so we basically took that same kind of model and just ended up condensing it into 2 months to be able to make sure that we're able to get to where we are today. Next, we identified the need for a training event. We noticed that there was a lot of misunderstanding about some NRCS programs, things like what's defined as historically underserved, how do those kind of designations work? And so we ended up doing a partner training event for some of our new staff members. We hosted that in September up at the North Haverhill extension building or extension office at the county complex. And we're looking at taking that now over the next year and bringing that to other parts of the state as well.
How many attendees? Just curious.
Great question. I'm going to go to Steve for that because I had
Was it pretty well attended?
It was pretty well attended. The original concept for that meeting was we had 3 new district managers up in the North Country. So it was really to bring familiarization to them, not only within NRCS, but with the other partners. So we had representation from NRCS. We had UNH Extension there. I can't remember.
partner planners.
Partner planners, yep.
Good.
So we had all the NHAC, obviously NHACD was there. So I had a couple hats on, so I was there from NHACD and SCC. So it was a very well attended event across all the partner organizations. And I think the new district managers got a lot out of that, at least an understanding of how we're all interrelated and how we all work together. So it was really great on that. And the feedback that Ian and I received out of that was that this could definitely be beneficial to the rest of the state. So we've talked about breaking that up into like the southwestern part of the state and then like the coast, and kind of bring this type of a refresher to all the district managers. But it was very well attended with all the different organizations.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve. The decision to host it in North Haverhill was because those 3 new district managers were Coos, Grafton, and Carroll counties, so the 3 North Country counties. So really just let's find a date that we can get them there and find a place that we can meet and do it. So glad we're able to get that done, especially we ended up putting that together on about a month's notice too. So
wow, good.
Good.
Right before the shutdown.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that was pretty much like the last thing we did before the shutdown.
Yeah.
And we had a morning session in the office with a lot of sharing of who does what, which helped the district managers a lot. And then Cooperative Extension, they were fantastic to take us out in the field. So it was a really great time.
Good. Yeah. And then kind of last thing from 2025 was to make a new, more locally specific NRCS report to the districts that was rolled out back in August, I believe was the first one that came out, which I think has been well received. Just creating more consistency from district to district about what that report looks like. And then also, while still making sure that there's locally specific and locally relevant information in that report. I think this feedback that I've been seeing on it has been positive. Having it kind of concise, they know where to get the information, whether it be, dollars for projects, important dates, staffing changes, those kind of things has been really helpful for them. So really glad to get a good handful of takeaways that we could implement last year. And I think we've made some really good progress on those. So turning our attention towards 2026, we're just going to kind of hit the major parts of what local work groups are going to look like. Overall, they are still a 2-hour in-person event. again, hosted in collaboration between the district and the local field office. So part one is mostly introductions, recapping the previous years, giving the DC and the district manager an opportunity to spend some time and talk about how that information was used for over that past year and implemented in that county. And so, again, with that, the impetus kind of falls on the DC and the district manager to be prepared to talk about what they did with that. While I go to all of the local work groups and facilitate a good amount of them, we want to make sure that that local flavor is intact and making sure that they're able to talk about what they've done. Some of our districts are doing really great work with their local work group results, using it to inform a lot of their practices throughout the year. So I think it's really key to just make sure that people see the value of coming out to that meeting year after year. So we continue to see growth in our participant pool. So that's a very short kind of initial part of the meeting. The second part of the meeting, what I refer to as the stickering, is where we identify resource concerns. We have a standard list of resource concerns that we use, and participants are given 3 primary stickers and 3 secondary stickers, and they go up and sticker their resource concerns. And so that's a standardized list across the state. We have done some work on revising that list, especially worked with Dawn, and just trying to make sure that that list can be more easily translated into NRCS lingo. Last year we had some resource concerns that were important, but also, frankly, a little bit vague in terms of what they actually meant. And so this year we went back in, tried to refine those terms to make it more clear on what the resource concern actually is. So, for instance, farm viability was one of the primary concerns from last year. That's a very broad term. I think, we'd all have slightly different definitions of what farm viability means. And so we've taken those kind of terms and broken them down into what some of the component parts are going to be. We've also gone ahead and removed the human and business concerns and moved them into a separate list that people will be able to note their concern about. And so now we've got a bigger section with, the soil, the water, the air, those kind of concerns, those kind of more traditional natural resource concerns. And then we'll have a separate list that will have the we need succession and farm business planning help. We need access to markets, those kind of other concerns that aren't necessarily traditional natural resource concerns. We'll still be able to capture that information, but we'll have a little bit more of a focus on natural resources when it comes to the stickering concern. And so after that's done, there's kind of a larger section of the meeting where participants are able to go into more detail about their concerns when it comes to these primary concerns. What's the details of those? Are there specific practices? Are there specific areas that these concerns are happening in? Really just diving into as much detail we can get on those. Part 3, the last part of the meeting, is an opportunity for specific feedback about NRCS and about the district. And so looking for feedback about NRCS programs, funding scenarios, issues, those kind of things. And so that can be at a state level, that can be at a local field office level. One particular emphasis that we're thinking about this year is trying to be more targeted when people come with concerns about things. So getting information from them, how recent is that concern? Is there a specific, issue, or are they just kind of venting because they feel like they need to vent about something? So getting specifics to make sure that we can follow up on what some concerns are if they're raised. And then the second part of that, which we've adjusted a bit, is to allow districts some more time to ultimately use as they would like. So last year we had some standardized questions that we would use. Some of the feedback coming from the supervisors around the state was that we want that to be a more open time frame and for districts to get what they want out of that time. So districts can, throw out some examples there, plan meeting schedules, brainstorm potential grant applications, feedback on equipment rental programs. They can use that time as they want, and there's going to be a emphasis for district managers or staff or supervisor, whoever is facilitating that part of the meeting, to be ready to use that time. Because we're happy to give them that time to get the information that they'd like, but we need them to be ready to use that. So really big changes in the program for this year are the refinement of that resource concern list. We went from, I think we had 43 last year, and I think we're down to 38 this year. So we've refined that a little bit. And then just adjusting that end section for district feedback. But overall, still a roughly 2-hour in-person meeting. And then next slide, just some final thoughts on local work groups this year, trying to emphasize producer participation. We're going to be really doing a lot of outreach to producer groups throughout the state to try to make sure that people are aware of the meetings and get their feedback as they can come to those meetings. I mentioned these are in-person meetings. I really believe that the in-person nature of it is really important. As recently as a couple of years ago, we tried some virtual versions of this that were clunky and hard to really pull information from. I understand people wanting to provide opportunity for people that can't come to provide feedback. I have created a survey that can be sent out to people that can attend to get their feedback, and that will be available for districts that want to utilize that. And one thing that we're looking at trying to get information for is public events. So last year at Pharmacy, Stratford County did kind of a pop-up local work group. They put up a resource concern board on their trailer at Pharmacy and had just people at this event stickering their concerns, which is really neat. We're looking forward to expanding on that idea. And so we're planning on having the resource concern board up at similar events, Farm and Forest, the Food Alliance statewide gathering, some places that we can continue to get participation. So that's kind of a, well, not so quick anymore, rundown of what local work groups are going to look like this year. Currently, we have 8 out of the 10 on the calendar. The last is a combined one, but so as soon as those get finalized, I'm looking forward to getting those published out and sending out lists to a lot of these producer groups as well to try to get their involvement.
All right. So just a couple things. I'd like to, if I could, throw my thoughts in here for this. First of all, the idea of the local working group is to give NRCS ideas for the coming year. Is that correct? Yet we're not finalizing anything till August. So it seems to me that, we should probably try to move that up until the May. Just a thought, so that we can get that out to the district so we can utilize that better rather than just the last 4 months of the year. So just a thought that I had on that to kind of help that out. And I think it would also be helpful at the beginning of the local working group meetings, if it was kind of either through the district conservationist, kind of let the people know what the priorities for NRCS are for the coming year, because I think that's a critical piece in how these local working groups should be take effect. If they don't know what NRCS priorities are, like the regenerative program, if they don't know that's a high priority, then they can't give you their feedback on that. So just a couple thoughts on that, just to kind of help further meaning. I think, the group has done a great job at kind of standardizing this so that the information can be used across the state. So I think I want to commend you. The first ones that we did were really off the wall, and I can see how kind of doing it this way works really well. And to further, Ian thought about bringing this at public events. So any HACD event that we attend will have these surveys put up. It was really well received at PharmaQ. NHACD was there with Stratford, and it was really well received by the public. They enjoyed it. So I think if we can kind of understand, we have Farm and Forest coming up. That's the first one. That's in May. And I think we can kind of get an understanding of what you want on those survey forms, so that we can kind of develop that prior to then and make sure that we can have them available. And NHACD will print them up and send them out to any district that wants to participate in that. So I think if we can get one that is kind of stable, and I think I've been toying with the idea of doing it through Envirothon as well. Maybe get the young people's input into how they feel. So I think this could be a very valuable tool for everybody. And I guess the question I want the NRCS to think about is how we can relay this information to you so that you can then utilize it after we have these events.
Steve, if I can, and then I'll let the team work through this. I really appreciate, I'm amazed at the work that Ian's been doing. I know the association, you guys are, super influential in the work that they do. So, when I use the term granitize, really, it is this local work group concept, right? This is how we're collecting this data to really influence the way that we do programs. In a normal year, I would say if we're holding local work groups right now, in a normal year, the information that we're gathering is honestly for fiscal year 27, if you will. And so I know we're a little bit behind the 8 ball because usually we're already, our application deadline is in October, and all the information you're gathering now with the local work groups really influences what we do in the fiscal year, the following fiscal year. And I'm certainly open to figuring out what that looks like, but I think the timing is really applicable for us. Because for all intents and purposes, we're done at this point in time tweaking programs. This is a little bit weird of a year because of a shutdown and the administration's new priorities, and they're really getting some things going. And we definitely will tweak as we need to this year. And so does that kind of give you
I think that has to be brought more out in the open that we're doing this for the following year. So okay. I think that's probably a misunderstanding. Yeah, I think that's probably a misunderstanding. So then I think if we're doing the ones in 2026, we should make it very clear that these are the priorities NRCS is going to be looking for 2027. So I don't think that part is very clear.
Yeah, we can definitely work on that piece of it.
Local work groups prior to the last 3 or 4 years were held later in the year, so people sort of made the connection that this is next fiscal year. About 3 or 4 years ago, we pushed them back to be more favorable to the producers rather than pull them out of their fields at the end of July or something. Yeah. Maybe that just needs to be communicated a touch better.
Yeah, certainly we can work on that. But I see this as, absolutely a critical piece of the work that we do. And the other thing is, and I know I talked to you guys about this and, Kim and Don, is we need to do a really, really good job. And this is not just New Hampshire. This is agency-wide. We need to do a really, really good job of taking those recommendations that you're gathering in the local work groups and then come back and say, this is how this is what we did with those recommendations, and this is how those recommendations influence the work that we did. And so I think you guys are doing a bang-up job, and we'll just continue to get better at that. So just know that this, to me, locally led conservation has its roots with our the father of soil conservation, Hugh Hammond Bennett, and we will only continue to lean into strengthening local conservation. So we've got your feedback, and we'll continue to do a better job for sure. Don, did you want to add something you were thinking?
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think we've really tried to work hard this year to incorporate your feedback. And I just wanted to mention that I think it's a year-long process. So we have some really formal touch points with subcommittees and local working groups. But I think all year long at different workshops, we're listening to producers, listening to you guys, listening to our great partners, and trying to really incorporate that. So I feel really great this year that I think we've done our best to capture all the priorities. And in a few minutes, I'll give a highlight presentation to let you see what we're looking at specifically.
Keep holding us accountable, though, Steve. I mean, that's why you're here. Is if it's not clear to the partners about what we're gathering information for you. You let me know, and we'll continue to get better at this.
It's great, really. I think the last couple of years, the improvement in the local working groups has really been awesome. I think the team that's working here has done a great job, and the feedback from the districts that I'm getting is much better. They actually want more, so I think the more that we can give them. They want to see value in doing this. They're investing their time and their energy, so they want to make sure that they're doing that. It's working. So that's the position that I'm trying to do from the feedback that I'm hearing from the districts.
Great.
So,
well, kudos to Ian. I mean, I've worked in a lot of states, and he's the most engaged kind of non-NRCS person I've seen. So, yeah, thank you.
Any other questions, comments in the room? I asked for questions from our television audience. I've received nothing. So I'll conclude Ian's portion here, and over to Steve for the New Hampshire Association of Conservation District updates.
Yep.
Steve, whenever you're ready.
Yep. So next week, myself and Dawn Cox, who are the board members for NACD for New Hampshire, will be attending the NACD annual meeting down in Texas. And we'll be in 80-degree weather, so I'm really kind of looking forward to that. As I got up this morning at 6 o'clock to clear the driveway from the snow, so kind of really looking forward to that. Some of our big events we have coming up is Farm, Forest, and Garden, which is on May 1st and May 2nd. We have our booths all reserved in NRCS's booth is the same as last year, right next to us. So we're kind of looking forward to that. And as I mentioned, we plan to have that survey. That's what we're going to be using as a big draw into our booth. So they've asked for more audience participation. So we feel this is one way that we can get input from the public on that. So we'll be doing that. Our other big event is Envirothon. That's on May 19th. It's a very well-attended event. I think this year is going to be one of the biggest numbers that we've had. So, and to me, this is one of the most important events we have, because these are the people that we're hoping will come up through the chain and become the next group of farmers and foresters and people working in conservation. So it's really important that we all support this group of people coming up. It's one of our biggest events that we support. NHACD over the last couple of years been focusing on kind of building up our infrastructure in the background, kind of stabilizing and looking forward to the future, what NHACD is going to be. And to that event, the executive board will be meeting next month about succession planning. This is my last year that I can be the president because due to the bylaws of the association. So we're going to start looking at some succession planning, which hasn't been done in the past before, but seeing that the organization is moving forward pretty well, we want to keep it moving in that direction. So we're pretty excited about that. 2026 TA grant. I think I've talked about this. We did apply again for the TA grant in 2026. We have our 3 conservation planners that we have now. We've added one additional one because Merrimack is not applying for the grant this year. So we added one to compensate for Merrimack. And then at NRCS's request, we also added in a engineering tech position that we've applied for as well. So hopefully that'll help support NRCS a little bit. we won't hear from that until March, I believe it is. So keep you updated on that. And one of the big things that the districts are working on right now, which is a pretty exciting thing, are the climate resilience grants, which are grants locally to each conservation district that they can give out to farmers or people that are interested in climate resilience. Each district this year has about $39,000 to give out per district. So it's pretty exciting that we can do that. And it's decided on a district level. So that's pretty exciting. And that's probably about it.
Well, we are well ahead of schedule here, and it's up to everybody else. We'd like to take 5 minutes, and then we'll go right into the NRCS portion, I think. Any
What
objection?
do you
to
guys
that?
think?
I think 5's good.
5 minutes and then we'll be back? Let's do it.
Yep, we'll be back at 10:25, folks out there. All right, we'll give it about another 30 seconds here, then we'll jump back into it. Up next will be NRCS New Hampshire update from our state resource conservationist, state soil scientist, state assistant for programs, and state conservation engineer. So starting up first, be Dawn.
All right, well, thanks, everybody. Want to give a few updates to the committee today, and want to start off by looking at a few slides that Jeremy, I think, is going to show for us here this morning to talk about first our regenerative pilot program. As Travis mentioned earlier, a new initiative here for the nation, really focusing on regenerative agriculture. And so on the next slide, we can look at some of the key pillars of the program. And so we'll have a primary practice list I'll show in a minute. One of the real key items here is that we're looking to do a soil health test in year 1 to give us a benchmark of where we're at currently, and then at year 5. And these will all be 5-year contracts as a minimum. So that's another key piece of this. So we'll be looking across this 5-year window to solve several resource concerns, really focusing on soil and water resource concerns. And so for a number of our growers, we're bringing that into focus currently and building strategies to address multiple resource concerns with multiple practices through this program. A key piece of this also is that through our Environmental Quality Incentives Program, EQIP, and the Conservation Stewardship Program, there's a 25% set aside in each program mandated for this program to spend on these practices in this program. So this is a great opportunity for New Hampshire. It really aligns really well with a lot of the state and local priorities you've been hearing about already this morning. And we're kind of excited to help our growers take the next step towards these targets. So Jeremy, on the next slide, I'll just show briefly, here's a number of the key practices, and I think you're familiar with many of these. When we think about conservation tillage, reduced till, no till, cover crops, many of the grazing kind of practices, and then other practices that help us manage nutrients and excess water. You heard from Jeff Holmes at FSA earlier about drought and excess water causing issues with soils and water. So thinking in those ways as well. So I think this is an exciting program for us. We're getting together our ranking priorities currently, and we'll be getting this out the door with many of the applications we have. So moving along here, just want to give a couple updates around our new national cost list. And for many of you, you might be aware that we had a New England centric cost list. So the 6 New England states would work together to build scenarios, costs, and help us kind of tailor that in New England. And we'd spent a lot of time on it. There was a decision made at the national level this year to go to a national cost list. So all 50 states essentially have the same cost list. And so as you can understand, we're still digesting the new cost list, what is on it, what might be missing that we're used to having, and making some translations. So we're really in the throes right now of taking the national cost list and applying it to New Hampshire, as Travis said earlier, granitizing that cost list and making it work for our growers within policy. So just to kind of hit a couple high points of it, these are estimates. If you think about many economic models, they're estimates. And we have a general practice description, or what we refer to as a scenario. So these are typical scenarios, common scenarios. It's not necessarily one size fits all. As you can see here, these scenarios don't dictate technical requirements, right? These are incentive payments to help reduce costs and help growers get over that hump to install these great conservation practices. Our implementation requirements and other technical specs, designs, et cetera, that we'll be giving the producer or the forest landowner will dictate the technical specs. These are essentially payments to help incentivize adoption. And so it's really key that not every scenario is supposed to be on the list, and we're really kind of working in a general fashion. It's not a huge change from what we had before, but it is new. And so, Jeremy, on the next slide, if you're really interested in digging in on what's out there, I might just remind folks that our Field Office Technical Guide, or we may refer to it as FOTOG. If you Google FOTG, you can drive into New Hampshire, and we can help you with this if you want to give us a ring. Section 1, there's a link there. I've just kind of screenshot this for you to get a look at where you can always go and find the official cost list for all our programs. So those are there now and live. They are final for this year, and so we're working with those for this year. So there's just a bit of update on our new national cost list, and kind of moving along now, I think, to the real meat here of the show, our ranking priorities. And so really in hearing from Steve and from Ian, and really want to say thank you to many of the partners on the call and beyond for great participation throughout the year and great participation in our subcommittee meetings, our Forestry and Wildlife Subcommittee meeting and our Agriculture Subcommittee meeting, where we really were able to spend 90 minutes with you and kind of get into what these priorities were, get some feedback, think about this. Our programs have never been more competitive than they are right now. We have over 700 applications we're working through at the moment, and working to think about what are the priorities for those applications. We have about $5.2 million currently in EFIP, $4.8 million in CSP, roughly $10 million. We want to get it right and make sure we spend those dollars on the highest priorities in hearing from you. So just to give kind of a highlight presentation here on some of these things, Jeremy, if we can kind of move through this, as we kind of talked about building soil health, cover crops, crop rotation, soil carbon amendment, reduced tillage. These are the things still very high priority. Want to keep prioritizing our soil health for our growers. Let's kind of move through these, Jeremy. Grazing systems, getting animals out into pasture, helping farmers increase productivity on pasture through grazing management plans with our TSP program, technical service providers, one of the priorities for the chief and the administration, helping incentivize more intensive grazing with fencing, restoring pastures with pasture and hayland planting. Still a high priority for us, continuing on there. Something Ian touched on earlier, farm viability. Again, kind of hearing about droughts and excess moisture, right? What can we do in that zone? So we've heard very loud and clear from our farmers, subsurface drainage is something they really want. Micro irrigation, something they need to be working more with. So how do we think about working with subsurface drainage, maybe collecting that water into reservoirs, thinking about helping folks become more efficient with the water they have through micro irrigation, and then always high tunnel systems, low tunnels, things to help extend growing season and deal with variable weather conditions. So that's kind of what we're looking at in that sector. But I think, Ian, we're going to work on that more as we bring that more and more into focus. So kind of an idea of some of the practices here, and we'll kind of keep on moving. Managing inputs, something we heard about, thinking about profitability, managing inputs, right place, right time. So our nutrient management, we've heard a lot about increasing costs with fertilizer. So how do we think about, slow release fertilizers, nitrate testing, things to really help us there. Manure injection, something that we're thinking more about becoming a little bit more popular. And of course, setbacks from water bodies, that conservation measure there with our nutrient management. So this program continues to gain popularity as we help growers tailor their nutrient additions and really help make sure that they're as profitable as possible and using those nutrients as wisely as possible. Pest management, we're helping folks reduce pesticide usage, calibrate equipment, and we're helping them scout and use weather models. Variable climate, we're finding pests in different times of the years, new pests, different pest pressures. So we've done a lot of work with UNH and our other partners here to help growers adopt weather models, weather stations, and think about calibrating their equipment. And this program continues to be growing in size, and we continue to help address these areas, but the capacity is an area of concern here with fewer consultants in the private sector, technical service providers to help us carry this through. So we continue to work with our partners to try to make this happen. Buffers and setbacks, kind of a one of the old school, if you will, kind of NRCS priorities here, right? Riparian buffers, stream bank stabilizations. Those tend to continue to, I think, increase as we have higher storm precip that we're seeing. We're seeing a lot more erosion on stream banks. And so I think a lot of requests coming in the door for setbacks, riparian buffers, toe stone on agricultural fields to help reduce erosion. And we're trying to do that with our partners in an ecologically friendly way. Filter strips, as you see here in this picture, a classic NRCS program, practice, I should say. Next slide. Forest management plans are really popular. I think last year was our most popular practice in the state. I think we did over 90 of these. We have a lot of great TSPs in New Hampshire, really one of the top states in the country for forestry TSPs. We do a lot of work here. This is a required first practice in EQIP. And so we have some set asides in our ranking pools this year to fund all kinds of plans. We've mentioned before, grazing plans, nutrient management plans, forest management plans, but we're helping many landowners achieve a plan here through this cost share program. Forest stand improvement, once they have their plan, there's lots of different silvicultural options here. This is just a quick snapshot, working here with UNH and our private sector foresters to help rehab stands that could benefit from improvement cutting, working through a bunch of new scenarios for leaving more wood in the forest to improve regeneration through planting and slash blankets and slash walls. Lots of great work there. It's really exciting. So we're really happy to see that continue. Maybe next slide, Jeremy. Brush management, one that's had a lot of interest of late. There's been, as this continues, I think, to unfortunately expand throughout the state. I think North Country seeing more invasive plants than they had seen, in previous decade. What are our multi-year strategies for success? So really, NRCS, we think about this in 3 treatments often, but sometimes it's 2. 1, what is the multi-year treatment for success? We're working through that, really trying to tailor our approach to have success and really trying to think about pairing these brush management, invasive control when we have other needs like silviculture or pasture management, wildlife management. So this is really a supporting practice often to other things we're doing. But we've heard loud and clear from you that this is a real high priority for us. Aquatic habitats, dam removals, replacing undersized culverts like you see here in the picture with open bottom or bridges. Continues to be something we work on, as we talked about earlier, with increased precipitation, fish passage, et cetera. So working a lot with this, especially with our forestry industry to help maintain great forest access, but also really increase aquatic connectivity.
I think that's the last slide in your portion, Dawn. So
thanks, Jeremy.
Any questions, comments from within the room or out there in remote viewing land?
Hey, real quick, while folks maybe type in just something to think about. So Don, essentially, he's talking about these are the priorities that we're looking at for FY26, right? Some of the subcommittees, the state tech subcommittee work that is going on right now is collecting, application data that we're looking at now, and then is influencing, making recommendations for FY27. I'm curious from the group, Don, great job covering that. Is there anything missing, right? And I'm not talking about just some individual operators, but from a broad New Hampshire, is there anything missing? And I'm thinking back to Ian's presentation. You guys, I think the chief cheated off of you guys. Like if you look at some of those you guys had, I think are NRCS priorities, but is there anything like just grossly missing from some of those priorities that we've looked at, just from my perspective? Is that a pretty good synopsis of what the group feels are really important for NRCS to invest in? And this year, these are their priorities, but thinking about FY27. If you don't know, if you're wondering, well, maybe this, I highly encourage you to be involved in the subcommittee meetings or local work group meetings. That really is where the bulk of the work from the State Tech Committee is done. So please be involved in those. And that's really all of the data that you're looking at is a combination of the data and information we collect from applications, but also from the subcommittees. So great job. Thank you.
All right, not seeing any questions or comments. We're gonna move on to Brooke, who's standing in for Jess Rock for fiscal year 2006 program updates, everything. Something everybody's been waiting for. Bated breath.
You even updated my name. Thank you.
Kid.
Thanks, Brooke.
Just now, in fact.
Well, I'm very happy to be here so Jeff can stay home and get well. And you can go ahead to the next slide, Jeremy. So this is just a summary of our fiscal year 26 allocation for program dollars. We've got, a little bit more for ALE. I want to say this year, I think last year we had about $1 million. We have about the same amount for WRE. CSP equip, that was the roughly $10 million that Don mentioned earlier. And RCPP, those dollars come to those specific projects separately. So we don't have those figures at this point. And advance the next slide. This is a summary of our open RCPP projects. As you can see, the Trout Unlimited, which looks like it's nearing completion with only $200,000 left. And so that is exciting work. And the very large Connecticut River Conservancy Award that we had seen, they were awarded, I want to say 10 million, and they have about 8.5 million left. And I'm not sure if those are 5-year agreements. I'm not sure about that, but it seems like they still have plenty of time to spend those dollars down. And then there are some other projects referred to. Oh, sorry.
My bad.
The note that there are 2 other projects, what is referred to as 2311 and 2361. And so it looks like we're still working on, spending those dollars under those projects. And I know that 2361 actually has some land management as well as easements. And I think there's one more easement, entity held agricultural easement going in under that project. So there we go, next slide. And so this is a breakdown of those targets that we have in our spending plan. So, looking at our $10 million rough allocation, we're looking at about $5 million to livestock between EQIP and CSP. And then, the RPP, the regenerative ag priority would be about $2.5 million. And then I think that leaves us with, another $2.5 million for other priorities, maybe forestry, or just things that didn't quite fit the RPP. But I'm pretty excited to see the RPP list, include a forestry practice, forest and improvement. So that was interesting. And then just the footnote there is our acronyms for those other priorities. So out of the whole pot of money, we're targeting to, reach, 5% of socially disadvantaged and, 5% of the beginner farmers.
And real quick, when we say required targets, just so everybody's on the same page, livestock, socially disadvantaged and beginning farmer are statutory requirements. It is in the law that we have to have that set aside. RPP is a national chief priority. So you can see it's a little bit challenging. By the time you get there, the team does a really good job to try and thread the needle on balancing national priorities and also the local work group and state priorities. So just an FYI on those.
All right, and then this is an allocation of how those dollars will be spread across the state. Looks roughly even. Conway, Lancaster, and honestly, I'm not sure how these numbers are arrived at, but I would think.
If anybody has questions, we can certainly address them.
I'm gonna say, I think the Conway Lancaster one is there's a lot of White Mountain National Forest in those 2 counties. It's kind of.
That's true. Yep.
And I will say, this is, when we get our allocation, we need to start somewhere, right? And so we take historical demand, we say predicted demand. We also want to try and balance out, a farmstead project costs a lot more than, other projects. And so we're trying to equity through the system, but yet recognize, trying to balance who's available for workload. That Conway Lancaster team probably has the smallest team as far as numbers goes. And so those are some of the things that we're looking at. It does not mean that we will end up with this. This is a target that we shoot for at the beginning. And then depending on what comes through the system and the demand, we kind of shift things around as needed. So is the idea.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll add for Conway and Lancaster, especially since we have the chair of the Carroll County Conservation District sitting here in the room with us, is that for the past 2 years, we've had a third sign up that was specific to Conway and Lancaster. And so when we look now at the backlog of customers that were not served last year, there weren't any left over from Conway and Lancaster. We funded all those applications. And there was a huge unmet demand in the rest of the state. So we took a little off the top to help fund those other customers.
And again, this is just a target. When we get into, we need to meet that 25% target for RPP. We have to meet beginning of farm or socially disadvantaged and livestock. And so there's some strategic investing that we do to get, but this is where we start just from an overall.
This is the key deadlines for the implementation of the programs this year. We passed the January 15th application cutoff date, which was set nationally. Field offices are working on the eligibility deadline for the end of this month. And FSA, yes.
FSA,
absolutely. Critical.
Thanks, team.
And, the end of April would be the ranking deadline. A little bit more time for CSP ranking, so those can be offset. And then overall, the obligation deadline is, towards the end of July. I know we have funds assessments through April and I want to say June. So when all of those 700 applications are gone through and we see what the application demand is and how much dollars we have, I think there is always an opportunity to see if we can, get some more funds into the state. So I know for speaking for ASAP, for example, we didn't have the volume of applications to go through. So we have in our January 15th cutoff, that 2 million for WRE, we have 6 million in applications. And for AL, we have about 3 million in applications for that 1.7 million. So there's already a need for some additional funds potentially. Okay. Quick RCPP update. So there's still no details on when the notice of funding opportunity will be out. So still working its way through clearance, but just with anything, you don't want to wait for that deadline. You want to be ready. Same thing with our, application cutoffs. We've received applications after the January 15th cutoff, and we really want to see those come to us on a continuous basis. So, always, if you have a project, it's never too early to reach out and start working on it. Next slide. Okay, and I just wanted to get this in front of everybody. We have our wetland reserve easement compensation rates updated for this year. The methodology has not changed. However, the rates per acre for the lands that we typically enroll, that support single-family residential development continue to increase, which is, just another sign of how strong the real estate market is. And so how important it is to try to protect some of our projects. And I will say that the Seacoast market areas are broken down as well as the Lakes region because there is enough of a difference between town residential, average residential values. So we have a more complete map. I just didn't want to get that all on one page. You can read it. But if anyone's interested in that, please reach out to Jeremy or myself and we can put you in.
I'll post the link to the
Okay,
updated GARC on our webpage here in the chat for everybody.
So yeah, I just want everyone to see these numbers. It's really a helpful tool for folks who are on the fence of whether they want to apply to this program or not. And the way that this works is if it is the land that's typically enrolled, that is between the size of 10 and 500 acres, we can apply these rates. If it's outside of that, or if it's land that's doesn't meet that typical enrollment, if it's commercial industrial land, approved subdivision, or too small or too big, then we have to get a site-specific use cap appraisal to determine value. But we would just get one before fair market value and apply the GARC percentage. So the appraisal not to exceed amount on the far end of that table is for those situations, we have to set a not to exceed rate. And so some of those higher value projects, can reach those amounts. All right, that is all I have for program update.
That is true. All right, I did post two links in the chat here. One is to the WRE page. It's the second link I posted. The first link goes specifically to this GARC document that Brooke has referred to here. So.
Thank you, Jeremy.
All right, thank you, Brooke. Up next, the state conservation engineer, Matt Brown, will talk to us briefly about emergency watershed protection.
Yeah, I've got a couple of EWP updates. Good morning, everybody. Hopefully, climate gods smile on us this year. We have no floods and no drought. Currently, there are no EWP requests. We did just wrap up recovery from the December 2023 storm. We had projects in Bartlett and in Gorham, about $1 million worth of work we completed up there. So that's basically the EWP summary. In terms of the other watershed and flood prevention programs that we've got, I'm just giving you guys an update that the Baker River Site 8 rehabilitation project was in a design phase for the past 5 years. That's just completed. And the sponsor is New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Dam Bureau, and they're going to be pursuing permitting for that project, and then we can request funding for construction. The construction cost estimate for that dam rehabilitation is about 20 million. So fundraising is going to be a challenge, both at the state level and potentially with NRCS federally. So that's going to be ongoing for the next couple of years. And then lastly, just want to give folks in Hillsborough County and southern part of the state an update that the Sauhegan River planning study is just about to conclude. We expect there to be a public meeting and a draft plan environmental assessment out this spring. So we'll be sending out some notifications. Jeremy will help me with that, posting that draft plan, but that covers 4 dams, 3 sites. We bundled that all up and again, DES, Dam Bureau, was the lead sponsor on that. And so you'll be able to see what we've been working on. That's been ongoing for, again, 5 years. And some pretty significant dam rehabilitation work in that study. So those are the watershed updates I've got. EWP, hopefully no new action. And then on the watershed program rehabilitation side, we've got 2 big projects that we've been working on for a long time that are winding down. So that's pretty good for me because we've got a lot of farm bill work to do now and a very streamlined staff. So that's where our focus is going to be the rest of the years. If you have any questions, or if you hear of any sites or any towns have issues with flooding or something that may qualify for EWP, I am the program manager for that, and I'm happy to take any questions at any time.
All right, Matt, thank you very much. That concludes what we have on the agenda right now. We do have a few minutes left. If anybody out there would like to have a open mic session here, any comments from within the room overall?
Yeah, I'm just interested if anybody has any anything that maybe we miss or any questions. So grateful for everybody. I know everybody here loves meetings, and we want more meetings in our lives. And I just am super grateful that you guys take the time out of your busy day. I really truly mean that when we want to granitize our programs, this is it. And we know we're better when we do this together. So thank you everybody for your time. And again, the importance of local work groups, subcommittees that are out there. Please stay involved in all the great work that you do, and yeah, we'll continue to do our best to meet the needs of the producers out there and our conservation partners. So thank you.
All right, we'll give it a minute or two here. If we see no raised hands or no other comments while we're waiting. Kim, do you have anything to say prior to retirement you'd like to?
Don't put me on the spot or anything.
I just did.
Yeah, no, it's bittersweet to leave the agency and all the partners that I've worked with for a long time. Being able to work for a great agency like NRCS, the best kept secret in the federal government, where we're able to help people, help the land, has been incredibly rewarding, and I'll miss it, but happy trails to me. I'm pretty excited to be heading out the door, and I hope to interact with many of you in a different capacity. So appreciate the minute, Jeremy.
All right. Still seeing no hands raised. Motion to conclude early. Anybody?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, I'll put a link in the chat. I'll find a link in the chat for our next state technical committee meeting. The event date for that is May 27th, 2026. We look forward to seeing you then. Thank you for attending our February meeting, and stay warm and dry and get some skiing in if that's your thing. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thanks, Jeremy.